you want.
And whenever I do these temps myself, I obviously know by that time who's going to be the composer, and I bend over backwards to find stuff that they've done in various other films to see if I can make it work. Obviously, you can't always make it work, so you have to use material from other sources. But I just think it's invaluable. And I must say, at times, there's areas you can get to work better than they do later, and that's not degrading anything composers do. But I don't think anybody is closer to the film than the director and the editor will ever be. I mean, we live with this, it's ours. And the thing is, when you're trying to create a temp score, and if you're interested in music, which I love, it's a love of mine, then you know the mood you want to create, you know what you want to try and say musically. And I don't think you should try and influence the composers too much, but if you get a mood correct, that's the mood I feel they should go with. They can change the theme, change the orchestration, but keep in mind the mood that we created.
I remember when the pods opened, you know, from the hypersleep, they did eventually temp track it, and in that particular scene they had temp tracked it with a piece of music I had written for Freud. And everyone thought that, oh, look how wonderful that music works. I said, it stinks, it's all wrong. I mean, it was sort of a little lullaby that I had written for Freud. So I wrote a piece, I wrote a piece for that, and it was very impressionistic and very mysterious, but pretty, but mysterious, and I thought it worked brilliantly.
That thing's gonna eat through the goddamn hall. Come on, what's going on?
The film came out with the Freud music in it. Consequently, I got more letters saying, "Starting to repeat yourself, eh?" They had bought the music from Freud and put it in that spot. So you could see that I was sort of like going at opposite ends of the pole with the filmmakers on the picture.
And I don't think he ever forgave me for using like Howard Hanson for the end of the film, and keeping the music that he wrote for Freud for the film. Though that was Fox's decision. You know, they could have said we're using the music that's written, but I do think that what we did on our temp in those areas was better than what he did. And I'm taking nothing away from the rest of the film, because what he did was perfect for it.
Well, you know, this is always a tricky part, because, you know, finally, no matter how much of it the composer hums for you or plays on the piano or does anything like that, you know, you don't really hear his score until you're on this, you know, recording stage. Or at least that was the way it used to be. And his score, when it finally was way too lush and way too, more like his Patton score, you know, and which was not really what anybody particularly wanted. We wanted it more haunting and weird and strange, and it wasn't really any of that. So actually what happened was we bought a couple of the Goldsmith pieces that we had in the temp, and then in the dub, in the mix, you know, we really played down a lot of his stuff and played up some kind of weird sounds that we had and all the rest of that stuff. This is really Ridley. When I say us here, I really mean Ridley. And, you know, and he did an amazing job in the dub. But Mr. Goldsmith was quite unhappy when he saw the movie. And, in fact, went to the studio. He'd done a lot of movies for Fox and, you know, announced that we were going to be a disaster and it was horrible and we'd ruined his score and we'd done all the rest of that stuff.
They released it as an album, and I bought the album. And there were a couple of tracks on the album that weren't in the movie. And they were tracks in which Goldsmith used horns to personify the alien. And it was very effective, this creepy, distant honking that comes in that is clearly meant to be the alien's theme. And it's very effective. It's not in the movie. But then I can't really see any place in the movie that you could use it without it being intrusive.
Ridley is a brilliant filmmaker. He's a brilliant visualist, and I think that was just his second film, and he wasn't as articulate then about what the music should do. I think he thinks so much in visuals, and music cannot replicate the visuals. It's not what it's supposed to do. And I think he was thinking more in terms, at least the message I was getting for him is he wanted me to be visual with the music. I can't be visual with the music. That's not what I'm supposed to do. Let the director and the cinematographer put the visuals on the screen. Let me do the emotional element. And I think that's where it became a big problem with me. And fortunately, I had a lot of time to do it, and I went back and redid music, and somehow it all worked out finally in the end. But it was a problem. And I think the biggest problem was just in communication between me and the director. It would be interesting if that film had been made today, and Ridley had now the benefit of having made so many other pictures and worked with a lot of different composers, how he would have approached it, with me musically. The real challenge of composing music for films is to write a score that works brilliantly in the film and also has a life of its own that stands by itself. I think many of the great scores of the past work brilliantly in a film, but taken by themselves, they don't stand alone.